Today's video is sponsored by Skillshare. So it's 2020 and most of us have some kind of New Year's resolution, and if yours happens to be to learn a new skill or maybe even pick up a new hobby, then Skillshare is definitely something that can help you out, all while being convenient and much more affordable than going to in-person classes and workshops. Skillshare has courses for just about everything, from art, film, business, lifestyle, and more. So if you're not sure where to start, I'm going to recommend the course Real Productivity: How to Build Habits That Last by Thomas Frank, because all too often our resolutions go down the drain once real life creeps in. You can try this course or any others free of charge, since Skillshare is giving away 2 free months of premium membership to help you explore your creativity, and after that it's only about $10 a month. All you need to do to take advantage of this offer is head over to the link in the description, and with that said, thanks again to Skillshare for supporting the channel, and now on to the show.
A very little information comes back to us as to what investigations found out, and that's the frustrating side that we face really, and that's partially because of the problems of where the ship was registered.
Rebecca Coriam was just 24 years old and employed as a crew member on the Disney Wonder cruise ship, a job that just a year prior took her from her native England all the way to the US, where she would begin her training. To most, this probably sounds like a dream, a chance to work a non-traditional job surrounded by Disney magic, all while being able to travel to beautiful locations such as the Bahamas on company dime. But this, of course, was not all there was to the story. In March of 2011, Rebecca was once again out at sea aboard the Disney Wonder. It was business as usual until Rebecca didn't show up for her shift, something that on a normal day most would assume could only be explained by her accidentally sleeping in or losing track of time. Curious, the staff tried calling her through the PA system, to no avail. They even checked her room, but she was nowhere to be found. Rebecca had vanished. To this day, Rebecca hasn't been found, and everyone involved in the investigation, from Disney all the way to the authorities, have been widely criticized for not conducting what people consider a proper search. Of course, Rebecca's case is not unique, which we'll get into more later, and it's even reasonable to say that the criticism of this case was also augmented by the fact that the cruise industry has what's become known as its dark side, however credible or not. Something that certain pockets of people are aware of, but the mainstream stay generally oblivious to. For most, going on a luxury cruise of any kind is the stereotypical idea of a perfect getaway vacation. In fact, according to Forbes.com, 2017 saw a whopping 26 million cruise passengers, and by 2018, that number had jumped to 28.5 million, according to MaritimeExecutive.com. Needless to say, the industry is currently experiencing a boom, but as business continues to grow, so do questions surrounding onboard safety and liability. The main point of contention for many would be the statistics. It's estimated that anywhere between 200 and 250 people have gone overboard from various cruise ships since the year 2000, and many suspect foul play in the cases that remain unsolved. Some liken this phenomenon to similar, seemingly connected disappearances in U.S. national parks, a conspiracy theory dubbed Missing 411. But is it really safe to say that all of these cases are connected at a single point? The theories behind what happened to Rebecca vary widely. Some say she was swept away by a rogue wave, something many others challenge due to the sheer height of the ship. Others note that the night before Rebecca disappeared, she could be seen via CCTV having what appeared to be an upsetting conversation on the ship's internal phones. There is, of course, only speculation over what was really going on in Rebecca's life before she vanished, but rumors state that she'd been going through a rough time with a romantic partner, something that's been used to assert the theory that Rebecca voluntarily jumped from the ship to end her life. Opposers of this theory include Rebecca's own family, who point out that tickets to Disneyland Paris had been found amongst her belongings, and on top of that, Rebecca had spoken to them about plans for the future. To them, this theory just didn't make any sense. The speculation continues and varies based on who you ask. Some will say it was human trafficking, others will say it was murder, and some assume that she simply fell off the ship by accident while playing around. These theories mirror the ones people prescribe to the wider phenomenon of people disappearing at sea, and surely to some degree they have to be correct. There are, for example, people who have been murdered on cruise ships. Take one Miki Kanesaki, who was killed by her ex-husband during a 2006 cruise. She was at first reported missing, but her strangled body washed up 2 days later. Likewise, accidents, of course, have also happened.
This was how Sarah Kirby intended on celebrating her 30th birthday, but after having several drinks while on a cruise, she fell overboard, fighting for her life.
I just prayed to God over and over, please don't let me die out here.
Surveillance video captured her cruise line terror.
I just remember leaning over the balcony to look at the side of the ship, and the next thing I knew, I was in the water.
Each case is its own isolated event, and without looking into every single one of them in painstaking detail, and without witnesses, we can't say for sure what happened to the victims. Looking at this phenomenon and trying to connect it to a single evil entity or crime ring is maybe the wrong angle. Maybe the question isn't about what we don't know, but rather what we do know. There is only one thing that solidly connects anyone who goes missing from cruise ships, and that would obviously be the ships themselves. Unfortunately, missing persons cases aren't actually the only stain on the cruise industry's reputation. All kinds of crimes take place aboard cruise ships since they are, after all, essentially floating communities, and although isolated, they do mirror their land-based counterparts. According to Business Insider and the Department of Transportation, sexual assaults are the most common crime to occur on cruise ships, with 82 alleged incidents in 2018. In second place from that year, with 22 reported incidents, was theft exceeding $10,000. The details going forward tell us very different stories depending on who you ask. While all of these crimes are absolutely inexcusable, the cruise industry argues that overall their ships are still relatively safe when compared to crime statistics on land. Cruising.org, a site maintained by the Cruise Lines International Association, or CLIA, claims that crime on board is not only overstated, but actually rare. So much so that cruise ships are supposedly, according to them anyway, 25 times safer than an average American city, according to this infographic on their site. They also claim that cruising is the safest way to travel, and note that the presence of onboard security and medical personnel. While this might all sound promising, for many it still isn't enough. Statements like these tend to be met with criticism from those who feel that the industry is sidestepping and deflecting from the questions at hand, as if to say, well, crime happens everywhere else, so why single us out? Maritime lawyer Jim Walker is especially vocal about the issue and points out an interesting legal conundrum that most don't even consider when stepping aboard a cruise ship.
The chances are very slim that this is going to come to a successful investigation and conclusion. There are lots of factors that come into play in a situation like this. This particular cruise line, Royal Caribbean Cruises, is a Liberian corporation. They registered their business in Monrovia, Liberia, in the continent of Africa. This particular ship, the Brilliance of the Seas, is registered in the Bahamas. We have a potential crime occurring in international waters between Greece and Turkey. It's pretty much in a no man's land right now.
Like you just heard, the issue of jurisdiction is a huge one when it comes to crimes that take place at sea, and one of the biggest criticisms of the industry has been the fact that such risks seem to not be properly disclosed to customers. If an incident were to occur, however big or small, most customers are under the assumption that they're subject to US law, or laws of wherever they boarded from. This was actually the crux of Rebecca Coriam's case, and if you'll recall, she was a British national working on a ship that was assumed to be American. In reality, however, the Disney Wonder was registered in the Bahamas for tax reasons, and thus Rebecca's case was passed on to the Royal Bahamas Police Force. Now, despite this, the ship was based at the port of Los Angeles, which meant that law enforcement had to fly in from the Bahamas to meet the ship upon its return. According to The Guardian, only one detective would show up. One person tasked with the massive undertaking of investigating an entire cruise ship with a capacity of thousands. To top this off, the detective had only been on site for a single day. It should be noted that in 2010, the Cruise Vessel Security and Safety Act went into law, making it a requirement that all cruise lines report incidents involving US citizens to the FBI. But as we know, Rebecca wasn't actually American. The law also outlined new safety requirements for cruise ships, such as peepholes on doors to allow for easy identification for passengers, along with a 42-inch requirement for all ship rails, something that would hopefully help quell the man overboard incidents. Despite this, they would of course continue, and according to the Washington Post, in 2018 there was a total of 19 deaths from overboard incidents out of 23 known cases. Setting aside foul play, the CO.AG claims that man overboard incidents in general are extremely rare, and almost always the result of what they call intentional or reckless acts. While this may be true, the issue of liability is still up for debate, featuring two main schools of thought. Let's turn back to Sarah Kirby, the woman who got intoxicated, fell off a cruise ship, and survived. The comments pretty much entirely consist of people mocking Sarah for getting intoxicated enough to fall in the first place. Many, of course, support the idea of personal responsibility and think it's common sense to not get drunk in a possibly dangerous environment. On the other side of the coin, we have those critical of what could be called booze cruise culture. It's no secret that drinking is a large part of the appeal of cruise vacations, and it's undoubtedly part of the marketing gimmick. Since this is the case, some argue, then the cruise companies are well aware that their customers are likely to get heavily intoxicated and possibly act recklessly. Many also point to this as a possible cause for sexual assault being the most frequent crime during cruises. Still, is there anything more that cruise lines can actually do to prevent tragedies? Some people think so, and point out land-based parallels that take such precautions, like barriers on bridges or locked hotel room windows, to prevent people from either falling or intentionally jumping. In the case of alcohol, it should actually be noted that there are things called dram shop laws that can vary from state to state in the US, but in general they make it possible to hold establishments such as bars or restaurants liable for the actions of a customer who was served additional alcohol while already visibly intoxicated. Overall, the darker side of cruising is a messy, complicated plane to traverse, and many who look into it are often left frustrated at the murky image formed by the limited data available to the public. Statistics can be unreliable, especially when you're relying on a business to report incidents, a business that's hyper-protective of its fun, luxury, family-friendly image. Keep in mind, while cruise lines are now required to make reports to the FBI, there is a gap in time before their boots are on the ground, and until law enforcement shows up, it's really just the cruise line themselves who can do anything to help you. The burden of crime scene preservation, something integral to any legal case, falls upon the cruise company. While going on a cruise getaway is in most cases safe, it's probably best to still be mindful of the reality at hand and the possible nightmare that could occur if something were to go wrong. As mentioned earlier, Rebecca was never found, and at this point it's unlikely that her body will ever be located. Her family, unfortunately, won't be getting any closure. Hey everyone, it's me, I'm off script. First of all, thank you so much for watching. Forgive me if I sound a little bit wrecked in this video. I am really tired right now. But anyway, it is time to thank the patrons for this episode. Lance, Joel T. Gorman, Connor H., Andrew L., Ben, Shards of Glass, Connor M., Trixie B., No, Nick B., Krista S., Jeremy P., Raphael C., Mark A., Shelby S., Esper Nix, Eric H., Guillerme M. I'm never going to be able to pronounce your name right, I'm so sorry. Keith Z., Julian F., Avocadros, Q., VHS Squid, J., Shadow, Rain, Danielle G., Matt J., and Zerai. Thank you all so much for your support, and thank you to everyone, even if you're just watching and you're not a patron or anything like that. I still super appreciate you tuning in. And with that said, I'm going to get off this mic now because I'm horrible off script, and I hope you all have a nice day, and I'll see you all again next time.